It is exactly 8:30 p.m. and it is Monday, March the 16th, and this is the final lecture. The class absolutely ends on Friday. All assignments must be in unless there's something that you have done or have requested. I can't tell you what that is, but at any rate, the point of the matter is all assignments that are not in by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time on the 20th, aside from what I just said, you might need to, if you have an issue, talk to an advisor or reach an advisor right away and tell them then let them tell you what you need to do. I can't tell you. So anyway, I'm going to go over the assignments for today, for this week. I do know that assignments from weeks 1 to 3 cannot be accepted anymore. 4, 5, and 6 can, but you will lose points for 4 or 5 because 5 was due Sunday, and 6 will be due this Friday rather, not Sunday. So let's take a look at this. You can see that week 5 lecture is here, and then I gave you the extra link to the video because there were some sound issues that happened last week with that very detailed Chasing the Dragon video. And so this is the final lecture. Tonight I will be posting that at the end here. So now let's see what the requirements are for this week. Open that up. So drug-related criminal activity treatment and rehabilitation strategies. And to prepare for this, Chapter 10 of Drugs, Crime, and Justice, which I sent you the PowerPoint previously. And the activities that we're going to go over are treatment-related challenges related to opioid addiction and drug treatment and rehabilitation program. Okay, and then you have your discussion assignment, which is due tomorrow night on methadone clinics. Your final reply post is due, as you see here, Friday, March 20th. And that's at 11:59 p.m. Not Saturday, not the 21st. And then there's the final exam, which is timed, and that's due Friday the 20th. And then there is a reminder that the quarter absolutely ends, so there's no doubt about it. And then there's a survey at the end that we ask you to complete, and you can submit that. And then you know what my motto is all about. So let's take a look at the course calendar. The course calendar goes over and shows you what I said. It says that your reading assignment, it gives you that I just discussed. Your live lecture, which is taking place now. And then your initial post on methadone clinics is due on tomorrow. And then your reply post is due on the 20th, Friday, your final exam. And then it tells you in here that the course absolutely ends. Okay. So you can see the calendar is very clear and there's no confusion about it. So let me close down. Okay. Let's go to the module. Again, I've reminded you throughout the course to use the Drugs and Crime course guide, which was prepared to help you with each of your assignments. And this is the post for methadone clinics, again, that is due tomorrow night. And then your reply post, reply to a student who has a different position than you do, and you want to provide that. Okay. And then your final exam, 60 minutes. It's a time exam, and then you will be alerted. And I can't tell you how many questions. Students always ask me. I'm not allowed to tell you that. All I can say is this, is that it's a comprehensive exam. If you've done the assignments, and you've done the readings, and you've listened to the lectures, you should be in pretty good shape. And then, of course, the key phrase I'm going to give you at the end, that's due also. So those are the assignments. So basically, there's no rubric for any of this stuff that's left, because your rubric that was last was for week 5, which you just completed yesterday. So your assignments for week 4, you should have the grades for those, and then I have week 5 left. I think. Let me do something a minute. I'll tell you in a minute. Let me check something. I had to stop sharing because I want to see something. And I think that I did. Let me see, because you can't see this. Yeah, week 4. I'm still grading week 4. So I'll be finishing week 4 tonight. So you'll have your grades for week 4 papers tonight. All right. So let's go back to the module. Okay, so now let me go back. Let me go back to sharing. So I got to go back to, oops, it's not what I want to do. Okay, now let's go back to sharing. Okay. So for module for week 6, like I said, all your assignments are in now except the final exam and your discussion post, or should be. So now let's go and let's see what we're going to talk about tonight. As you've already discovered, there's a correlation between drugs and crime, and you recognize the fact that it is an epidemic proportion, and that people commit crimes to support their drug habits. You've also discovered that there are alternate means now for treating individuals, even from law enforcement, with the deflection programs that I mentioned. Senate Bill 2380, I think it was, I think it's Senate Bill 2380. It is, I'm sorry, 3023. Senate Bill 3023, the deflection, which I gave you copies of, and which we mentioned in a previous lecture. And then you begin to see how people can go innocently, as you saw Chasing the Dragon, from just using painkillers and legal drugs that are prescribed, to abusing them, to leading to opioids and other heroin, and other kinds of drug addictions. So we're going to talk about the treatment challenges, and then we're going to talk about the drug treatment and rehabilitation programs. So with the treatment for opioid addiction, as we know, one of the challenges, number one, is there's a scarcity of money for the various programs that are out here. You know about Narcan and Naloxone, which is part of that, and how now the first responders, including law enforcement, are carrying these to try to arrest, not arrest as in lockup, but to arrest the effects of the drugs that are killing people, and that it is creating all kinds of havoc with our society, relating to your relationships with your family and friends and all your relatives, and people don't want to be bothered with those individuals, number one, because those people will oftentimes steal from you, or they'll do whatever it takes to get what they need to get that fix. And so it is a problematic situation. It has a whole bunch of things that it does. Messes with your mind. It turns you into, you could be a genius, and it turns you into a vegetable, or it turns you into a person who is not capable even making simple decisions. Your hygiene goes down. And so there are many, many, many things that happen, such as they talk about here. You see individuals become restless. There's muscle and bone pain. There's insomnia, diarrhea, vomiting, cold flashes, and sweating. All these are effects that these people go through who find themselves addicted to opioids. And as I said earlier, as it talks about prescription drugs like ibuprofen or buprofen and methadone, what it does is it deals with withdrawals. And as I have said before, and I'll say it again, that my position on methadone is it's just substituting one drug for another, and that as soon as a person doesn't get their hit of methadone, they fall back into the same mode. In other words, what it does is it masks the symptoms that the individual has in terms of the problems they have from withdrawing from these drugs and all the different changes that I had mentioned that individuals go through. And so these clinics are all over the place, and it's inexpensive also. It says methadone is also detected in opioid on drug tests for employment, and using methadone does not eliminate the possibility of using other opioids. So you could stop one drug, start another illegal drug. Methadone, my understanding, has nothing to do with cocaine addiction. It has to do with heroin addiction. But the point of the matter is that you can still find yourself in a pretty bad state. And so, like I said, I'm not a big methadone person. There are people who say, well, at least it's something that helps the individual. Yeah, but you live your whole life addicted now to methadone. And if you, like I said, if you miss it, you slide back. And sometimes the situation is worse than the first situation. It says here another argument against methadone is that it essentially removes or postpones something that's necessary, and that's the hard work of kicking the habit. And kicking the habit is not very easy, as most people don't make it that far, as you saw from the videos that we looked at last week, Chasing the Dragon, and previous videos that we looked at, and how we saw how the law enforcement people have stressed the fact that this is a health issue and that individuals are finding themselves spiraling downward and never recovering. And so, yes, it might sound like doom and gloom, but here's the deal, is that you can take individuals and lock them up, as some students have advocated in the course, but if you lock them up, keep them for a period of time, that's not going to deter individuals, because that body is being controlled by that drug, and because it's being controlled by that drug, the drug is Lord and master over the daily activities of that individual. And so it is how should I say, not a very promising way to resolve our opioid addiction problem. It says here intensive counseling, attending meetings, getting a sponsor, and building a support network would all be postponed. And it's almost like a person trying to figure out a way to lose weight quick, fast, and in a hurry, rather than to go through the steps of changing their diet and or exercising. Well, it's the same kind of thing that we're talking about here when it comes to substituting one drug for another, i.e. Methadone. Says some studies indicate that over 70% of people relapse. Now, I would be surprised if that's a very conservative number. I would be surprised if it would be more like 85 to 90%, quite honestly. So the point of the matter is that in this course, you have been exposed to the problems that exist with individuals who just, even with one pill, one simple little pill, will find themselves down in the gutter or becoming opioid addicts or killing themselves. As I shared with you this book, From Dope to Hope, Tim Ryan, a man who came to speak to us at the Rasmussen Romeoville campus, a man in recovery. I highly recommend taking a look at this book, and it tells you the story that is kind of typical of what happens with individuals. Here is a man who, one of the issues that's mentioned in the book is that his son, his own son, while he was a counselor, he couldn't save. And so as a result, he lost his son. So it becomes a very serious problem. Okay. So where are we? We're at a point now where we just have to continue to recognize that we need more resources to help these individuals. Why are you going through this in criminal justice? Because as I try to remind people who are criminal justice professionals, especially in law enforcement, that it is very likely that the average criminal you might run into in this day and time might be an addict or a person suffering from mental illness. And the two go hand in hand. And sometimes one of the results of this opioid addiction is damaging the mental facilities of that individual's faculties of that individuals, so they can't think, and mental illness is what's left in its place. So anyway, that's what I want to tell you about this. It is it's going to take more work on the part of us in the law enforcement field, more in the corrections field, more in the probation and parole field, more in terms of the psychologists. I have a daughter who's a clinical psychologist in criminal in the criminal law area, individuals who are locked up in Cook County Jail. She deals with that kind of thing. So the point of the matter is that we got a major problem. And that we can't operate and just say, well, you know, shame on those people. No, not shame on those people. We need to come about with methods to deal with alleviating these drugs. As you learn in this course from previous weeks, the war on drugs is just not winning. It's not winning. You know, we're not winning it. We're losing it. And we're losing people on a daily basis because of the fact that people are making money on this. But if you get the people to a point where you take away the audience, the business, then it will at least begin to decrease. I don't know if it will ever go away. So anyway, that's where we are here as we find ourselves. When you get a chance to, you can even take a look at this video here, which I'm not going to spend time going through the video, but take time to look at it and watch it. Chasing Heroin. It's a little lengthy video, and it tells you some of the things that we've already talked about, and you see the fact that it seems like we're losing. We're not gaining any ground, but that doesn't mean we can't still continue to try to come up with methods and more professionalism in the form of individuals dealing with individuals who are in those situations, such as the way law enforcement is going with the deflection programs, where instead of a person running away from the police, they run to the police, who will then deliver them to drug treatment programs where they can get some help. And I'll tell you this, and that's the final word I'm going to say on this topic, is that most people that I know who have become opioid addicts, as I've seen them, are crying out for help. They're like trapped. They didn't realize the consequences of that one little pill, and then the rest is history. And they're stuck. And those of us who are not, we don't need to be turning our backs. We need to come up with and support those individuals. And again, hopefully our government will begin to realize that the resources that would help alleviate or minimize recidivism, repeat offenders, is to deal with eliminating or minimizing opioid addiction, not just with Narcan, Noxolone, that brand, not with those, but with just simply getting the people the help that's necessary to cure them. As when a person there's no shot for this, there's a flu shot, and then now you got this con virus, and no solution for this. Well, here, put this in perspective. This goes on all the time, and we need to take some of the same steps that we do in dealing with this pandemic disease that we're attempting to fight now, with just basic hand washing and with hand sanitizer and with all these other things that has created havoc in this country, or in the world, should I say. At this point, people are actually dying now as a result because it's gotten out of hand. That's the same thing I'm saying that happens on a daily basis to people who are opioid addicts, and nobody's paying attention to that at the magnitude that they're paying to this. But trust me, it's still something that is frustrating. You can probably tell from the way I'm talking about it. If you've lost someone in your family to drugs, as I have, then you understand it better. So what do people do? What do we try to do? What's one of the things? This drug treatment program, these programs that we have come up with to help patients to deal with these situations, instead of dealing with the methadone, we begin to push for inpatient treatment, where there is extensive long-term residential inpatient treatment to try to help people. It says here 6 to 12 months. 6 to 12 months is nothing if you can save somebody's life. But it says here these programs focus on helping individuals change their behavior, and it's very, very structured. And that's what we need. But there's a whole lot of problems with the amount of money that agencies put up in terms of providing the resources that are necessary to help these individuals. Short-term residential treatment is the most common one, but I always tell people that short-term residential treatment is like really basically locking them up and then releasing them before the problem is resolved. And so you'll still have people continuing to temporarily, or as I call it, a stay of execution. But these programs are here to try to get people to withdraw. But it says residential treatment also aids in the preparation for the individual return to community. But the fact of the matter is that I can tell you that based on what you saw in the video that we saw, Chasing the Dragon, that if a person goes a long time, they will relapse very quickly. And sometimes there's an individual that can go for a year and still have the same problem and come out. There was one family that spent a great deal of money in terms of their own funds to try to save the life of their loved one. The point of the matter is that it's an arduous, difficult task. It says for opioid addiction, medicated assistance with methadone, bupropion, or extended release injectable naloxone plays a role in the treatment. But as I said before, the problem with especially dealing with naloxone is that individuals find themselves hooked in with these drugs. But what ends up taking place, as you well know from what you've learned in this class, is that there are people who actually, it's like playing Russian roulette. They die, and some of them do come back. They're able to bring them back uh, with this Noxalone, but there are too many that are still lost. So says the use of these prescribed medications ease the symptoms of withdrawal sickness and quicken the transition to recovery. The point of the matter is that it is an arduous task. So you've heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, and many people have heard of them, the 12-step programs, and you can look at these steps, and you can start at the first one, admitting the fact that you need help. That's pretty much one of the first things that's necessary. A strong admission that there is nothing you can do and you are crying out and that you need help because your life is a shipwreck and you need help. And then second, you believe that there's a power greater than yourself. Now, notice what I'm talking about. We're shifting from dealing with the medication aspects of more toward the faith direction. As a pastor, I'm a proponent of that, recognizing that there is someone greater than you. And I don't care what you call it. I call him God. I call him Jesus Christ. But the point of the matter is that you have to believe in something that is greater than you. And I'm not talking about as individuals to another that can deal with it. I don't care what you call it. And I'm not knocking anything. But the point of the matter is that you get to the end of your rope. Then you get to number 3, make a decision to turn over your lives to the care of God as we understood him. Well, the point of the matter is that that's what AA is saying. And what AA is saying with alcohol also works when it turns into drugs. I have seen that happen with individuals. It hasn't been the easiest thing, but it has happened. And as a person teaching this class and recognizing that what we need to do as educators is to make sure that we don't leave out some of these things. As I said, there are some students who get offended when we say this, but that's okay. There are people who get offended about a lot of things that you might try to do. But the point of the matter is that what I would personally say to a person who gets offended at the term is, okay, call it whatever you want to call it. What do you want to call it? And then just recognize it's something that you yourself couldn't do, otherwise you would have done it a long time ago. Make a searching and fearless moral inventory of self. Self-examination is basically what that point 4 is all about. You have to look and see where you really are, take inventory of where you are, and are you really happy with where you are? Probably not. And looking for a way out. Unfortunately, the way out oftentimes comes with ODs. Then 5, admit it to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. Have someone that you can be accountable to. Someone who you can respond to when you get weak. And I've seen that happen many a times. Number 6, ready to have God move all of these defects of character. Once again, this is AA that says, and they're strongly based on faith. So there are some people who believe in meditation and whatever it is you can do, the bottom line. Humbly ask him, notice what it says him is referred to as God when the way it's written here, to remove our shortcomings. Well, I always tell people you can ask to have your shortcomings removed, but you also have a free will, and you have to decide, do you really want it bad enough? And then finally 8, and then 9, and then 10, 11, and then you get all the way to 12. The last one, having a spiritual awakening that comes about, and this is something that they use for alcoholics, and I've seen used for individuals who are involved with drugs. So, Professor Wright, are you saying that, it looks like we're kind of trapped in the situation we're in? I didn't say that. What I am saying is that if you got something better than what these people are saying down here in this 12-step program, then you need to bring it on, and let's get it going. Even the testimonies of the addicts, like Tim Ryan, who wrote the book, what he basically is saying, don't do it. Say no instead of yes. Teaching your young kids, because young kids now are finding themselves in these situations. People going to the medicine cabinets of your home. It used to be a point when you just had aspirin and stuff like that, but now you got these strong painkillers in the cabinets, and So anyway, this week I just primarily want to just bring to your attention, as we conclude this course, that all is not doom and gloom. You yourself may come up with something, and the key thing is, when you learn something, share it with others, and let's just be supportive of individuals who need this kind of help. Throughout the years as a lawyer, I represented individuals in drug court. And when I represented those individuals in drug court, one of the key issues that the judges would constantly discuss with us attorneys is what can we do to stop this person from continuously doing this? And usually I would say to the judges that I was in front of, I said, Your Honor, the only thing I can do is tell you is to get these people into some serious, intensive treatment. I mean, where you can't have a real time period on it, because of the fact that everybody recovers or could improve at a different pace, and you find that to be the case. So we in court would just try to deal with the individual that we had before us, and hopefully that what we come up with a remedy will at least put them closer to recovery and further away from repeat offenders, becoming a repeat offender or recidivist. And so I guess that's about it. Any questions or comments? You can type in the chat box if you have any. Any? Yeah, I hope that this course has opened your eyes. That's probably one of the greatest things that a student can tell me. I don't know if it was you who said something about opening their eyes, but I know one of my students did say something about, more than one, has said that it gave them something to think about. Well, now that you thought about it, now let's act on it, and let's come up with some solutions for dealing with alleviating the problem. Because as sure as we're concentrating on this pandemic issue of COVID-19, also called whatever the name of that beer is, Anyway, I don't drink it. But you know what I'm talking about. Corona. So we can deal with this. Let me see. Yeah, Corona. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the company doesn't appreciate us even keep on saying that. Let's see. You said it does give good perspective for sure. It's a much deeper issue. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And it is something that requires, I should say, action. Um, you know, and what what I really don't like about the way that we as people do, and this is not just America, but I've noticed it really strong in America. We are very reactive when something comes up, and we got to try to take a deep look at it. Well, it's all around you. You need to, as they say, firemen don't wait until it's a four-alarm blaze or whatever that high alarm is. They try to get it when it's smoke or a little flame and put it out. Well, that's the same thing that should have happened with this virus thing, but it's also the same kind of thing that we should have been dealing with. And to be honest with you, to tell the truth, I'm from the urban area. I'm in the suburban areas now, but I still recognize and note the problems that are in the urban areas, that when some of these problems with the opioids were in the urban areas, it really wasn't made into as big an issue as when it hit the suburban areas or the rural areas, should I say. Then all of a sudden they say, oh, we got to do something about this. And see, and I'm offended by that, but that's in reality. I've been in law enforcement seeing it. I've seen it in the way the courts operate in the same vein. So let's change that. Let's change that. My criminal justice professionals that are coming out, let's look at the fact that we need not 20 years from now be talking about this as a crisis, the opioid addiction. And so with that, I want to give you a key word: heroin addiction. That's it. So you can run with that. And if you look at that Chasing Heroin video that I showed you a few minutes ago, you'll see more about it in terms of it. So I hope that you have, I use the term enjoyed because the knowledge that comes out of just this short 6 weeks of being exposed to this, and I take my hat off to the people, like there's one of my colleagues, Patty Laney, and several other colleagues, and I played a minor role. This used to be an 11-week course, and it was more like a health science class, but now we mix law enforcement. We deal with the issues that are needed in terms of correcting the problem, and what we as criminal justice individuals can do, as opposed to not just the health science people, the nurses, the doctors, and medical assistants, and etc. But what we can do to throw our hat into helping change this situation. So I hope to see you guys in future classes. I will be teaching this class again, term 2 next quarter, along with many of you are in the introduction to criminal law class, which my final lecture will be tomorrow night. So with that, thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate it when any student comes out to the lectures, and as you probably have seen, if nobody comes, I still do the lectures anyway. And oh, okay. See, that proves my point. Yeah, I know your name. I know your name. Yeah, and I know who you are. And I will say this in closing, and it really happens. I'm not kidding what I'm about to say. My students who take the time to come to these lectures, their GPAs are higher than students who don't. I'm just saying. That's all I'm gonna say on that. And like I said again, there's a reason why we do this. Is so that it's not just online. You know, funny thing though, I'm kind of tickled a little bit, but I remember when I first started working in Rasmussen, 2011, and it was residential. But then I was told that they were going, they were online anyway, but they were heading toward it. And anyway, when they started moving everything to online, practically everything, there were people who says, this online thing, I don't know. This online classroom thing, I don't know how credible it is or how, beneficial it's going to be in the long run in society. Well, take a look at what you've heard in the last day or two. Everybody is heading towards online classes. And I'm going to tell you something. They're going to learn something as they've gone along, that individuals who work like many of you guys do in my classes, that you become great contributors, and that online is probably one of the greatest things that have come about to enhance the ability to help working people to get an education. So that's my little soapbox speech on that. Good night, and enjoy your break that's coming up. I won't have a full break. I'll have a partial break, but stay safe during this situation. I'm going to say good night at this time.